The Imitation Nation podcast covers all things counterfeit, hosted by Shabir Imber-Safdar of the Partnership for Safe Medicines and Sven Bergman of Venture Global. All statements are their own and not the opinions of their employers. Welcome, everyone, to Imitation Nation podcast number 13, Lucky 13. How are you, Sven?
I am really good. I'm down in Florida at the National Sheriff's Convention, so I'm doing the show from the road, so to speak. And it's always lovely to connect with all of our law enforcement partners and see the latest trends that are going on and get some really good intel. And it's a really good conference. They're very tiring, as you know, conferences. Like you start at 6 in the morning and then go until late at night with receptions. And so it's one of my favorite conferences of the year. How about you?
I'm good. I was on the road for about almost 2 weeks. I went to pick up a kid from college, and I went home for Father's Day because my dad and my stepdad are getting up in their years, and so I feel like every Father's Day is an important one. And then I went to St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands to meet with the Attorneys General at the Attorneys General Alliance and did a presentation on unsafe and counterfeit and unsafely compounded GLP-1s, right? So Ozempic, Wegovy, Zepbound. And that was really, really good. I will confess that I was there for a blink, and I spent basically an afternoon on the beach with a really big book. That was my vacation of that. But I did not make it into the wife accompanied junket that I was hoping to turn it into. I did my talk. It was very well received with some great partners from the National Consumers League and the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy, and then spent the afternoon with that book and then flew home.
Same here. We dropped 2 kids off at 2 different colleges, and then I flew down here. And tomorrow my plan is I have the morning free to quickly look at the beach and then fly home. So, but I'm with you. Yes, at one day the junkets will hopefully appear, but right now it's work. Anyways, so what are we covering today? What's the first great story you found?
So this is one that's near and dear to my heart, and it was, obviously ordering things online is always a risk, and the more expensive thing you order online, the more likely you are to get defrauded. Mm-hmm. And so one of the hottest things, and I know this from having a son who is a computer gamer in the family, is high-end graphics cards, right? They make your games run quickly. They render beautifully. I mean, it is not a joke to say that there are video games that have a longer production time and a higher budget than many Hollywood movies. And they look very, very realistic. And so getting a good graphics card to take advantage of that is critical. And for a long time, the newest hotness was the NVIDIA, and everybody knows that name, I guess, from the AI world, the NVIDIA RTX 4090. And it's like a $1,600 graphics card. And the big problem is that they've been hard to get, right? They still are actually pretty hard to get. They only make so many of them a year. Yeah. They're making them as fast as possible, I presume. And so people will buy them and then flip them for more money. And sell them online, which is obviously a dangerous place to be dropping $1,000 to $2,000 to $3,000. But the fraud I saw this week was really epic. Tom's Hardware Review, which is a very reliable site, ran an article about a PC repair shop in China that received 4 RTX 4090 NVIDIA graphics cards and then examined them and realized that 3 of them were fake. They'd taken an old card and tried to modify it so that it would look like a 4090, and in the process had created a card that was, of course, inoperable. You could put it in your computer and it wouldn't work at all. But it looked good enough that it convinced a number of people.
Yeah, no, it is, the sad thing about this is it's one of those issues that keeps occurring. So the first time I noticed that that's an issue was all the way back in 2012. When the Senate Armed Services Committee did a report on counterfeits in the military and found that they had 100 million counterfeit parts. And that's parts, a chip that goes to, a B-2 or a, rocket launching missile system and an Apache helicopter. And they had exactly that issue, that folks were thinking they're recycling old computers and the recycling sites were sending them back overseas. They were stripping all the chips out. They were acid washing all of the markings off. They put new markings on, made them look like new chips. And, a chip looks like chip, right? They look the same with the marking. And so it's still an issue. In preparation for the show, I looked, and the latest report that I could find, so 2012 was massive, and then they did a bunch of changes. But according to a research firm called Supply Chain Connect, the counterfeit chip market is still estimated to be about 75 billion a year. So
Holy
it
moly.
is significant. So whenever you buy from any third-party site, you don't know. It looks like a chip, and it's a black thing with some writing on it, right? I'm obviously oversimplifying here, but it is a significant issue that the industry has really struggled with. The military put very tight track and trace procedures in to track and trace chips and has rooted it out. But the broader industry is still very, very exposed to this. And with chips like NVIDIA that are breathtakingly expensive, yeah, it's a lucrative target. It's a very lucrative target. And, the gaming consoles is one of those things where you're like, okay, unfortunate somebody couldn't game. And yes, I know it's passion. It's really bad if it's a chip that goes into a Boeing 787, right? And all of a sudden you're like, yep, that's not working now. So there's some real risks here. There's some real risks here. And I really really hope that some tech providers continue to step up and find better solutions to mark these chips and allow for people for better detection of these programs. I know Intel has a very, very aggressive counterfeit program. NVIDIA has an aggressive one, but it's 75 billion. It's a big issue. 100%.
Yeah, and I would say that there's a real challenge here, right? Because these are hot commodities, there's no secure, there's very little of a secure supply chain to go to, right? All of the inventory gets bought up. So it's not like you can go to NVIDIA's website and buy it all the time. Right. Sometimes there's just no inventory. All the inventory has been grabbed up by speculators who then relist it on eBay. And in this case, these cards, the customer told the repair shop that they paid $1,350 for a $1,600 card. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple of real landmines in that fact. The first of which is that it is cheap, and it's not so cheap to be absurd. Now, even getting it for list price in a shortage might be viewed as an unbelievable price, because if it's a shortage and you're getting it for list price, you might think that's too cheap to be true. But $1,350 off $1,600 is actually not eye-poppingly fraudulent.
Agreed.
Right? $800 off for a $1,600 graphics card would be eye-poppingly fraudulent.
Yeah.
And this is really hard once you've been bit by a fraudster. It can be, especially a mail order fraudster like through eBay, it can be really hard to fix. I was learning as I was watching people talking about the way in which they've been defrauded online by fake eBay sellers and others, is that they would get a package that did not have whatever was supposed to be in it, and it would contain other items for weight, like bags of sand. And when you go to open a dispute, with Amazon or eBay, they would look at the shipping weight from the carrier, from the logistics carrier, from like FedEx, and say, okay, the seller says that you just received it and are lying and saying that wasn't in there. But we checked with the shipper, and what they shipped was the same weight as the NVIDIA card or the iPad that you claimed you bought. And so prove to us that you are not trying to defraud the seller. And suddenly it gets really, really dark. And so I think that there's just there's just sometimes no safe way to buy the product you want if it's only available from non-confirmed sellers. I just think that in that situation, you just have to, in the case of a gaming card, you have to just do with worse graphics for a couple of months.
Yeah. And, the only other way that you can do, and the military did it, they closed their supply chain. So now they're like, okay, we're going to have a short list of registered, licensed, verified, audited suppliers that we think are good. And that's the only ones you're allowed to buy from. And it's, it's the same as in the pharmaceutical world, where you can only buy from a manufacturer. A manufacturer can only sell to a distributor. A distributor can only sell to a pharmacy, right? They're all licensed. They're all registered, and there's an entire system in between. So, and the political will for that had been missing. I think, or I wonder, especially with chips, the strategic importance of chips for the United States, if we will see some movements in the future where they say, no, for certain chips, we're going to really restrict that. Like, we're going to make sure we're going to license the entire distribution chain, and we're going to crack down on folks that are not verified, licensed within that chain, allowed to sell it. It'd be a massive undertaking, but I wonder if that, especially for a certain group of chips, will become mandatory because of public safety threats that can really occur if you put the wrong chip in some critical infrastructure. So let's see where it goes. There have been bills over the years, but they never got traction to get there. So we'll see.
Well, and I don't think that. I mean, it does increase. Our drug supply chain is very safe. It's because it's highly regulated. That does add some cost to medicine, although I would say that the 2/3 of the medicines we all take are cheaper here than in any other country because of the success of our generics policy framework. But it certainly does add some cost to it, but it also adds safety, right? So you pay for the safety, and I don't think the safety is necessarily warranted for gaming graphics cards, but maybe it is warranted for other things like airplane electronics.
Yeah. And the usual advice to folks, when you buy cards, go on websites that are just more legit, right? That have, where you know that's a real actual wholesaler versus buying it from some dude of eBay, right? And just take that extra step. Like, I recently upgraded a computer in our office, and the same thing, we put additional RAM chips in. We went to a known supplier we've used for years, and we know that they're buying legit. Was it the cheapest cards? No, we got cheaper offers, but I'm like, I know it's not going to burn up our Mac. So,
yeah. Or waste your money and you have to rebuy the good card eventually, in a week. So tell me what story you're following this week.
For me, it's really a win I want to report here, which is there's a company or a marketplace called StockX, and they really focus on selling sneakers, right? High level sneakers, collector sneakers, all of these special design things. And they really have put a very, very solid program in place on how they inspect listings for all of the shoes that come in. And they released a report that they have taken down over $10 million worth of counterfeit sneakers last year, and that they actually are looking at these items being sold and are rejecting somewhere between 22 to 32% of listings that come in. And so for me, that's a real win that a platform says, listen, because they could just say, we don't care, we don't have liability and just sell them. But they're like, no, that's not our brand. That's not what we want to do. We want to make sure if people buy and I'm not into sneaker collecting, so I can't even give you an example of what probably a high-level sneaker would be, but can say, no, if I buy this special, like one of them says here, the Core Black, or the Adidas, the Travis Scott Air Jordan Canary, like these, again, which none of them, I have no idea what these sneakers are because I'm not a sneaker collector, but that when you buy the black, Samba or whatever it is, that that that's the one and that's the real one. And it's okay to pay $600, $700, $1,000 for that pair of shoes. And so I'm really proud of that company. I think it shows incredible leadership when you say, I am voluntarily delisting a very large percentage of just sales, not getting that revenue, because my long-term reputation as a company and as a platform is way more important to me than some short-term profit. And I love that they're playing the long game on this and establishing this brand, have a wonderful report that they put out, what they put in place. And I think that's just that's a good win. It's nice to see when folks really genuinely care and say, no, I don't want this kind of stuff on my site. So for me, there was a win. I read it. I love the report. I'll put it in the show notes so folks can read it as well. But I think for me, that was just a win. I always like to see it when folks do the right thing, right?
Yeah, that is good. And I think it's important. Good actors can only thrive in an environment in which bad actors are punished. And so I hope that all the work that we do and everybody else does in the supply chain world to crack down on bad actors is done with that in mind. That you don't get good actors if you don't punish bad actors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. What else?
Well, I am also not in a sneaker
find?
collecting world.
You're not a sneaker type, is that?
I'm not. No one has ever accused me of having expensive taste in shoes. My shoes are pretty old and scuffed and been polished within an inch of their life to try and give them a longer lifespan.
And then same here, man. Same here. What else did you find? I think there's something in car parts that piqued your interest, right?
This is so interesting to me. So I was looking at what was happening in the car parts and dispute space, and I found this case that Audi brought against carparts.com for selling Audi grills that they said infringed on their trademarks, but also their OEM numbers. And I didn't actually know that you could use that someone else using your OEM numbers to describe your product could constitute trademark infringement. But that's alleged as part of this litigation. And what happened is that, Audi ordered these car grills from eBay, I guess from the carparts.com eBay account, and confirmed that they were not made by them, and then sent them a cease and desist, and then took them to litigation because they said they continued to sell that. And I was just struck. I guess Audi has a very aggressive anti-counterfeiting and trademark protection team. This was news to me because I've never owned an Audi. I'm a Toyota person, but I totally get that.
No, the big car companies have it. I think it's great that they're doing it, especially when you see it in the counterfeit realm. For me, within all the counterfeit parts is, again, the same as with when we looked at the size of what the market is in chips. The size right now of the counterfeit car parts market. And again, there's another report, I'll put it out, that was just put out by CDP. They're seeing right now a rampant rise in counterfeit car parts. And not just, like a grill or something, but like spark plugs and brake pads and a lot of things that are really safety related. Again, if I have a fake grill on, okay, it won't look good or infringing, that's one thing. But if it's like an airbag or a brake pad or an engine part that makes the engine run and that is counterfeited, is crazy. So U.S. Customs and Border Protection seized more than 211,000 counterfeit automotive parts in 2024, which was doubling the number of counterfeit seized parts from the year before. And part of this also, right now, playing the thing again that we said earlier in the year, when you add tariffs on this, right, it'll increase it because all of a sudden your overseas Bosch brake pad is more expensive because that's the part and there's not assembly in between. It's just a part that gets really marked up. It creates a pricing umbrella for a counterfeiter to say, oh, no, I have a brake pad. And especially like in the brake pad realm, I've worked with clients in that realm and we tested these brake pads. They're made out of sawdust or drywall compound, right? You hit that thing as you're driving, it's just going to disintegrate. And so really dangerous stuff. It's a very concerning development that it's starting to grow that rapidly right now. And so, yeah, the director of the IPR Center said that it's really alarming for what they're seeing coming right now. And again, they reiterate, please make sure when you buy car parts, again, stay to the places that you should go to, right? Don't always do it online. Go to the store that is local, Napa Auto Parts or whatever it is, and kind of buy it from reputable dealers versus like this guy of like, oh no, I got these fantastic Brembo brake pads somewhere that are all of a sudden way cheaper. They're not.
Yeah.
So it's just, people got to be smart about it.
There's a really interesting aspect to this dispute, especially over Audi grills, that I was fascinated by. So this was a case, different seller, but this was a case that the EU Court of Justice heard. and it was about Audi grills. And what happened is that there was a vendor selling an Audi radiator grill. And now, if you were selling it with the Audi logo, but Audi didn't make it, or an authorized trademark grill maker didn't make it on behalf of Audi, it's a pretty straightforward, oh, that's a counterfeit, right? You basically made something with my trademark on it and you sold it without my permission. That's a straight up trademark infringement. But what these guys did was they sold an Audi grill with a cutout for where you'd put the logo. So the logo itself wasn't on it, but it was just a hole, an Audi logo shaped hole. And Audi took them to court, and the EU Court of Justice actually heard the case and said, no, that is also infringing. To make a trademark shaped hole is an infringement of your trademark, if obviously the only thing that's going to go in there is your trademark logo. And I found, when they found in favor of Audi in that case, I was really struck how funny that was. But, there's still new territory to be tread here in the world of anti-counterfeiting enforcement and trademark infringement.
I actually love that. I had no idea that was the precedent they're setting there in Europe. And for the reason that, so all my friends that work in brand protection, that's a common thing that they love to do. So they send, baseball caps in, and I don't have the Era logo on yet, or I send in Under Armour shirts and I just don't have the Under Armour on yet. It's clearly Under Armour shirt, but then when it gets to the US, I'm going to put the Under Armour logo on, and I ship the logos in small envelopes separately. If they get seized, that's an issue, but I get the shirts in. And if the courts say, no, if your intention was you just shipped it separately, no, that's still infringement. That would be huge. I know Apple has the same issue where people basically ship one thing and then add the logo later and have a cutout for it. And so, if that's precedent, if that holds, if that's something that in the US could also come, that would be very nice. Because yes, counterfeiters love to do the disassembling, and I ship the logo separately, and then like, oh no, this is just a computer. You're like, no, it's not. It's a fake iMac, and you know it. So that would be very cool.
Well, and I don't envy the people at Customs and Border Protection who actually have to write the seizure rules for how that works. Like, if it looks like an iMac but it's missing the Apple logo, you're allowed to seize it. There's a whole lot of judgment and specificity that has to happen in the writing of those regs, which I don't envy the person having to do that.
And to care. And quite honestly, I can guarantee you part of the reason why that port did the seizure the way they did it, I can guarantee you Audi had been to all of these ports, had been training the officers on what it is. They understood it. They were traded. The trademarks were all properly registered, all in their system. All the groundwork was laid. And then I made officers really understand what to look for, and it helps. So they don't have to figure it out. They're like, oh no, I learned that. You trade me. I got it. This goes quicker now. So yeah, congrats to their team. I think that's a really cool case. And I love that the law that they're trading with it. So I think that's fantastic.
So tell me, we had a couple quick stories. Yeah, we had some quick stories that we don't have a lot of time for, but what did you find that was interesting this week?
For me, I'm going to point the one out, and I think you might want to point out as well, the amount of counterfeit money cases I see right now. Like when I did the research for the show of like what's going on counterfeit, it's everywhere right now. So somebody somewhere is trying to revive the $100 super note. There's 20s, there's hundreds. There's one case in Michigan that we covered on one of the last shows where somebody bought a drone with all fake hundreds and then led to a stash house that had a couple $100,000 worth of counterfeit money in it. And I see it out of every state right now. I see significant counterfeit money seizures in every single state in the United States. So somewhere, somebody, most likely overseas, has decided to like, let's get back into the counterfeit money business. And it's, it had died away. It's now back, and it's incredible that it's back. I'm beyond surprised.
My favorite is one of the stories this week about someone who basically took Hamilton's, like I guess that's $10 bill, and washed off all the ink and then reprinted 100 on it. And they handed it to a grocery cashier, and the grocery cashier did what you see every cashier does when they get 100, which is they hold it up to the light and they look for the watermark. And she saw the Hamilton watermark on the Benjamin. she could still see it, and she was like, "Okay, we're not going to take that bill. That is a problem for us this week." I actually found, I don't have a teen that's into this, but the Boo Boo dolls are this year's Beanie Baby, and I'm watching a huge market in counterfeit Labubu dolls. And so I saw the counterfeit Labubu doll market explode. And then China actually is making an effort to crack down on counterfeit production of Labubu dolls, right? China is no longer the anything goes country. And so they shut down a factory making them. And then this news story that we'll feature in the show notes, all the other known counterfeit manufacturers of Labubu dolls very, very quickly went dark. Right, figuring that this first person was unlucky and got made an example of. This manufacturer was making fake Labubus, but they didn't want to be the next one, and so they all decided, wow, we're just going to take a vacation right now and shut down production. So it's interesting watching how China actually does enforcement and doesn't have to shut down everyone. They can just go after one and make a very public spectacle of it, and scare the rest of the manufacturers into getting out of the business, at least temporarily. But that was actually a little heartwarming anti-counterfeiting story for me.
I like it. Yeah, and the last win I think that we have in there is that, and I know we said we don't want to talk about fake U.S. stamps anymore. We're going to talk about fake U.S. stamps one more time. I think the U.S. Postal Service really, because this started to pop up, and you and I both have communicated with the USPIS and said, hey, this is all we were seeing. It was very good. We saw that the U.S. Postal Service has obtained temporary restraining orders against 2 shipping companies out of New York and Los Angeles who were accused of getting these mass shipments in. So that's great that they're aggressively moving against the largers. I also noticed on my searches, I'm starting to see the websites disappear. So I think they're working with Google to either suppress the rankings, change the algorithm. Hopefully they have a way of taking some of these sites down. And then, as we discussed, through our complaints and through our public service of making them aware that this exists, I'm seeing less and less paid ads for these services. And I know that their revenue service is working to say, yep, we don't like that either. So hopefully these are all things where, the U.S. players who can say, yep, we don't want this business on our planes. We don't want it in our trains. We don't want it come in. We don't want it advertised on our websites. And so if the good U.S. suppliers suppress it, then hopefully that business dies back down, because it's faking U.S. currency. It literally is faking currency, and so it's the little gift that keeps on giving. So we'll see.
So you know how you take a package to your local post office and you pay for shipping, and they print the label and they put it on it. So they actually found, U.S. Postal Service actually filed a TRO against 2 shipping companies in New York and Los Angeles this week that were making fake labels, not stamps. They were faking the entire label and then shipping packages to customers using those fake labels. They apparently were buying the labels from a Chinese printing manufacturer and then proceeding to apply them to packages. I was shocked. I was like, okay, this is a whole step beyond stamps. You're actually faking something that's an internal postal service document. You would think that they could scan that and detect them as fake, but apparently they're not doing that, or there's no way to do it. So it's a whole nother.
When we did the conversation with them about your purchases, they're like, yep, thank you for you sent the label pictures and everything in of the shipments you received. And they're like, yeah, that was fake postage that they used for that as well with a fake address. So they're like, it's all fake. So yeah, I love that they're moving aggressively against this. I think it's true.
I'm waiting to find out that there's actually a fake post office somewhere. It's a fakey, just like there was a fake Apple store in China. I'm waiting for some counterfeiter to make a fake post office where they actually just fake up all the labels and all the stamps, and they carry it over to a real post office and put it in the box for delivery.
I would not be surprised if that happens. Trust me, I've had brand protection directors who had exactly that issue where they're like, yep, I had a fake shop that looks exactly like our US shop, but it's not our shop, and it showed up in China. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if a fake US postal office shows up somewhere in like Beijing or Guangzhou. Anyways, it should be here.
We'll be back in 2 weeks. And
Yes.
if you haven't yet, go follow us, Imitation Nation, on LinkedIn. We also have a website at imitationnation.com. And you can follow us on Podbean, subscribe to us, and get that podcast delivered down into your phone, and you can listen to it on your commute to or from work, or taking kids to or from college, which is what is my world and your world.
Very good. All right, Shabir, good seeing you. Please read us out.
The Imitation Nation podcast is a production of Cause Stories and is the sole owner of this production. Podcast production by Shabir Imber Safdar. Podcast management by Sarah Imber Safdar. Theme music written by Jonathan Boyle.